India's first style statement arose from her freedom struggle, the Swadeshi movement. An outcry to save her crafts, culture, and craftsperson. Today, 60 years later, a similar struggle ensues in modern India.
I've been abroad quite a few times and I've seen a shirt and I've seen made in India. And I've been like, we don't find shirts like this at home, you know? And it's quite disappointing at times like that.
You know what? Because they make the made in India, the kind of, not the great quality one, they send it to the showrooms here, and not the good ones, they send it there.
That's why they send it over there and they're not bothered about whether we can buy. They think we buy the rejected quality. We're not going to offer to pay so much.
According to me, Indians have a mindset. If it's from abroad, it's damn good. That's the thing which every Indian, I mean, he, she, everybody has it in them.
I would prefer to buy a Western brand, like something like Mango over, something.
Yeah, definitely.
Indian.
Don't you ever feel like wearing what you make?
I have feel, but I don't have get an opportunity to wear because there's the conditions we can't wear.
And I'm like, no, it's got to stop. And the whole world came here because our standards here were brilliant. And if we are to create those standards again, then it is important for people here to understand quality and to take it to the next level.
A few take on the challenge of weaving in Indivisualism, refusing to turn into a faceless, nameless outsource space.
We saw really nice things, even that just use Indian techniques in the shape of a shawl, let's say, or a dupatta, that you couldn't buy here. And we thought it was odd, since we just moved back, that, 30 years after India became independent, the best produce was still going abroad, and that there was this new design sensibility happening, but there was no room for it. Retail was a nightmare.
It's flashback 1987. It was, in a way, pure. India at that time was about the Kanjivaram sari or a Banarsi sari. Other than that, they went to the darzi with their kapra and they spent 75 rupees getting a salwar kameez tailored. Then they went abroad and they spent. But I don't think that there was anything contemporary or anything that actually said, you know what, there's great design being done in India.
And yet, behind factory walls, there were things of great standard being produced for the Western market. And I said, you're not producing all these beautiful things for the West, so why don't you sell them here? Don't you think that if you produce it in this country, you should be entitled to it? We live in now and we are influenced by the world. And if our country doesn't feel current and hip, then everyone's going to jump ship and want polyester, which is what I saw when I was growing up. I think it's very important that you design for your reality and the people and the life you lead. There's no better way of responding to needs than design to create solutions. The first step is that at least Indians should have access to the best.
Suddenly, like Star TV comes to India, suddenly the whole frame of reference, Manmohan Singh's liberalization happens, the change in India, but honestly, it's about feeling proud of who you are. It's not what we grew up with, which was everything good is across that ocean.
In many of the emerging markets, there's already a retail infrastructure. In India, we have designers, but we also have an emerging retail infrastructure. So I say it's like having a beautiful car and having a dirt road.
I used to sell oilfield equipment and I thought this is going to be the purpose of my life. My God, I'm really going to have to kill myself. In a way, greater challenges here. You're redefining a modern India, and through it yourself.
I think in his heart, he's always been that creative person who played the piano and sketched women in bed and won all the art prizes in Doon School. I think he was just blown away by a perspective which he'd never had before. There was this big machine tool showroom on the ground floor in the most unfashionable area. This is an idea before its time. A huge gamble.
That was part of the whole attempt when Ensemble opened to get Indian designers out of the shell of just designing for Western designers. You insisted on quality, good service, space that you could see what you were going to wear in, attendants who knew how to fit you.
The story of Ensemble for me is the story of Indian fashion. What Ensemble brought back is luxury into design.
I can't take credit for that. There were lots of people. It was all part of the wave. I mean, I must give credit where it's due to Rohit Khosla for shooting this into the arm of Indian fashion.
Rohit Khosla was a designer when he was in the West, but here in India he was a stylist. So why are you not a designer anymore? He said, because there's no place to sell. So I said, if there's a place to sell, would you go back to designing? He said, 100%. And that's basically small concepts like that came together. And that's how the first bunch of designers for Ensemble came together.
Who is a designer label? Where are they from? They're all educated abroad. They know what fashion is, and they know what to wear and how to wear it. The designer label became a new culture.
The most important thing, I think we're the only country in the world that actually still believes in the labor of love. We actually do things out of love. I know that people who spent the last 4 months making these clothes have done it out of love, not because they've been paid an X amount of money or anything. Every single thing that I use was Indian, from the fabric to manufacturing to the thread, the embellishments, everything was Indian. I just really needed for people to understand that, yes, this exists in India. It's possible to do in India, and it will be done the best possible way. I think it was a need, it was a want, it was the right time. Maybe a little forward. We were all a little forward for that time, but I mean, it was the right time to begin. And thanks to people like Tarun Tahiliani who had the foresight to open stores like Ensemble, which is where it all started really. If it wasn't for Ensemble, this would maybe not even happened.
It's not just that you're giving me fabulous clothes to wear. You're actually grooming and mentoring an industry. It's an incredible mix of entrepreneurship, love for aesthetics, history, and the story of Indian fashion.
We used to have an office like this where people would just come with their collections and show it to us, and we would not just say yes or no, but we would say no, but if you do this, this and this, then come back to us. It was a slight mentoring program also. If I see something beautiful, to this day I get excited, and I get very excited about, then I go back to what is your business plan and where are you selling and what are you doing and how are you doing this, I just see it as an incubator.
One day I got this phone call and they said that that was for Ensemble. I was really, really excited about it. From the minute it started with designers, it was like they wanted to make an impression and do it their way. Fashion always wanted to make a statement through shows. Thanks to people like Tarun and Rohit, it wasn't only the designers and everyone else, but the whole industry evolved.
Rohit really made it contemporary and taught us. Because till then shows were like tedious choreographed events. You know, everyone looking scared because they're marching 1, 2, 3, 4 and hands going up to the right. I mean, some kind of PT drill into Tiananmen Square in Zardozi, you know, awful.
And he would come onto stage, I remember, and he would bang his head on the ramp and put his foot up like a heavy foot, and then he'd walk down and he'd say, "This is the way you do it." We've done mad stuff, as in we had to put sugar syrup in our hair the night before and curl our hair, and then it stayed like that. I mean, it was madness, and nobody ever said no. There were flies around us and everything because we had sugar syrup in our hair for like 24 hours, literally. You know, and we partied with that sugar syrup after the show, and you know, everything was just so positive and so good. At the US Club, it was spectacular. I remember we were all ready to go on, and suddenly there was a storm happening. I was the first girl standing there. I had this cape which was covering what I was wearing, and he said, "Just keep walking and midway undo the cape." And from the leaves, all these dry leaves, and the breeze was coming towards me. It was like as if we had nature's way of just giving us, adding to that look. I cannot tell you the expression of the people sitting in the audience. They were in shock, and they were shocked in a very nice, happy manner. And it was a super success, super success.
Thousands of people banging the doors down. I mean, I remember we were locked in. We couldn't even get out to use the loo. It was kind of very flattering but chaotic.
It just was a total burst of colors, strange, different things that you never dreamt you would wear, you wore. It was incredible. We started changing and living Indian lifestyle in a different way.
The French sounding store I heard of, I was 16 and I was brought to the store. I bought 2 jackets and I still have them.
A couple of years later, I realized that by now I had a day job. I was helping run Ensemble, and I was really interested in design. And so I had this little label, and I realized that I was getting frustrated. And so very soon in 1988, I decided I needed to go and study. So I went back to FIT and did a very intensive of draping and pattern cutting, things that were just essential tools to be able to further the craft.
I happened to come back on a leave of absence at that time because at that point I was a banker in the United States. And I always said to myself, this is what my creative brother does. I don't, this is too frivolous for me. I'm a very serious person. I've studied science. Like a week or 2 later, he said to me, "Tina, I'm going back to FIT." And I said, how can you do this? I mean, you're leaving me with this? I mean, this is not something I understand. I used to write him long faxes in New York. What do I do and how do I do it, and etc., etc. He'd fly down once in, say, 6 weeks or 8 weeks and hold my hand.
He brought luxury, design, a sensibility that actually existed in the Indian aesthetic and ethos, but we'd forgotten about it. Ensemble reminded you that you come from this really fine heritage and history. Their passion that led to this, and the professionalism. Take the craft, you have to revive it, but not in the traditional sense of revival. He took Indian fabric and gave it a modern twist. Each garment was produced lovingly, each weave was treated with respect.
There were many elements that came together which kind of fused into this concept that became Ensemble, and these elements came together through personal experiences, background, people that we met, things that we read, things that we saw, just everything came together. And the initial concept was basically to provide a professional, comfortable retail environment to showcase things that were being made in India. That was like at the very basic level, and then it evolved into what you see now.
And all of them were just started with Ensemble. And I remember Abu Sandeep and Tarun and Rohit Bal. At that time there was Rohit Khosla. I used to think that would my clothes ever be there? When I chose movies, my whole thing was that it doesn't need any kind of investment. It doesn't need for me to go and study fashion abroad, which I couldn't afford. And cinema is being neglected, so let me do something there. And thought that one day, maybe, I will also be among all the senior designers to be in Ensemble, because for me, I think it's iconic in a sense that it's one of the first stores in India which kind of forecasted the change. It's got a certain identity and it's maintained that.
Really, for me, it's as important to have my customers happy as it is to have my designers happy. For me, these are the major stakeholders of what we're doing.
My first real Ensemble moment was it being a Tarun Tahiliani bride. I think what Ensemble manages to do beautifully is marry old India with new India, our traditional needs with our contemporary needs.
When I got married, the first thing I wanted to do was shop here. So it's an arrival thing. It's someone who, if you want the best, this is the place you come. Whether it's in the workmanship, the class, the choice of designers. I was very intimidated, honestly, when I came here. But the moment you step through those beautiful doors, the warmth, the respect, the attention, the time that they give, you don't see it anywhere else.
The sophistication that I feel and the sophistication that I get here, with the chic feeling that you get here, you get only in Ensemble. I enjoyed the wonderment of it. And Ensemble, again, has been a key comfort zone for me. I've learned a lot from here with different styles, different fashion designers.
So I decided to work with Ensemble because I wanted to work with the best people in the company, in the fashion industry, and the people who had initiated the idea of high fashion into India's high society and fashion industry.
Think out of the box and to live up to the expectations and keep in mind the 25th year of Ensemble. So prove ourselves by every collection better and better.
50% of India's top designers today have been launched by Ensemble, and that's something we're very, very proud of. You make your mark and you provide hundreds and thousands of other people with a livelihood or, with employment.
ये कंपनी में स्टार्टिंग से काम किया है और इतने लॉन्ग टाइम से काम कर रहे हैं और बहुत कुछ सीखा है कंपनी से। एक कंपनी से आज कम से कम 8-10 कंपनियां हम Ensemble ने बनाया है, मतलब ग्रोथ किया है। और उसके साथ वर्कर ने भी ग्रोथ किया। ऐसा बात नहीं कि वर्कर ने ग्रोथ किया और हम लोग खुश हैं। आई एम हैप्पी विद Ensemble.
This is a place that invites you. This is a place that uplifts your mood. This is a place that dresses you. This is a place that changes your mood. And this is a place that fixes your mood. So this is home.
And it reminded you that you can afford it. It can be part of your life, whether you're going to a wedding or you're going to a work appointment or you just want to feel good about yourself. Ensemble reminded you to be a woman again.
It's about empowering women to find their own style. It's about allowing women to celebrate fashion in the true sense of the word. For me, what I look forward to most from Ensemble and from Tina and Tarun next is many more ensembles, many more young designers, many more careers being made, and many more women falling in love with fashion.
Ensemble brought a whole new way of thinking to the Indian fashion scene. We're talking about the fit, fall, finish, the detailing with Indian textiles, with Indian fabrics, with Indian embroideries, the innovation of drape, how the dupatta fell, where the titch button came, that constructed look to give an unconstructed feel.
What draws me towards this place is the whole uncluttered experience. It's easier for me to choose my garments when they are spaced out well, when I have very warm, welcoming salesperson. Right from the new designers to the most established designers, I found the overall choice to be extremely aesthetic. So that for me is a special experience.
I think it's really lovely to see, you know, them as siblings and how they've blossomed and grown and embraced fashion. I love the fact that Tina is making a huge effort to bring a lot of labels back into the store that are into fashion revival and doing, you know, a lot of things related to handicraft in India and just beautiful, beautiful work that doesn't necessarily have to be hugely and crazily embellished. Ensemble will play a very important role because I think on a lot of levels, Ensemble is this country's window to that story. And I think it'll be interesting to follow Tina and Tarun and see how they actually bring certain traditional dress in a fashionable way back into the forefront.
It's about empowering women to find their own style. It's about allowing women to celebrate fashion in the true sense of the word. For me, what I look forward to most from Ensemble and from Tina and Tarun next is many more ensembles, many more young designers, many more careers being made, and many more women falling in love with fashion.
You know, when you have this kind of idealism and a great bunch, you know, as always, use the old cliche, the whole is always greater than the sum of the parts. And all these people came together and, you know, we formed very long-standing friendships with these people.
For me, it's about the Indian subcontinent, which includes Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and Pakistan. These are the countries that I am proud of, and this is what I want to get across to my customer. And it's done with our fabrics, with our designers in our karkhanas. Except, yes, there's a consciousness of cut that's crept in. It suits the Indian body, it shows that bit of waist which is so sensual. Through this journey of being exposed to the beauty of what India is able to create and how the modern Indian mind is able to interpret it. And I have in my own way tried to give that back to our customer.